We'll see you in a little bit.
Looking forward to it. How will I know, by the way? So I should just stay on.
Yeah, because you'll just go to the backstage. That's all.
Okay. All right.
I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Fu. You muted. Jay
muted.
Did I not do this yesterday? I'm Jay.
And our main one, and we're Unplugged Free Your Mind, a show where we discuss an array of topics, current events, and world news from an unfiltered, unbiased, and unpoint of view. If you see all of us smiling, it's because we are so excited about what's about to happen right now. It seems like I just saw you guys on air, so I'm not going to say how y'all doing because I know how y'all doing. I saw y'all yesterday. But how was your day?
You know what? You know what? We were just on last night. Let's just go ahead and say that. We were on last night. We had a great conversation. We had a very informative guest. So listen, we had a great weekend. I'll start off. I'll recap my own weekend. I did get a chance to get on the Metro North and the subway in New York for the first time in 1 year, technically a year and a month, because I stopped taking the Metro North and the subway back in February of 2020. So it was, to me, it was nice. Everyone was doing what they were supposed to be doing with the social distancing and mask. And, I had on my gloves and I had on, I stopped through Grand Central. I was in Grand Central. I am literally, y'all, taking pictures like I was a real tourist because I hadn't seen it in so long. And I mean, come on, it's New York. Come on. I love it. People love that. And so it was nice to see that when I got down there. And can I tell you still how eerie it was in Grand Central that it may have been 30 people on a Friday at I think I got down there at 5 o'clock. It was eerie.
Wow. Okay.
So that was my weekend. And I went down to West Village, same thing. Not a lot of people walking around. You go into the restaurants. They're going to take they take your temperature. You'll do the contact tracing thing. It was very, oh boy. Yeah. Yeah. I went into a restaurant and you walk in the door. Everyone has people either outside the door or as soon as you walk in, and they're going to do your temperature first. They're going to read your temperature. And then you have to do contact tracing form that says,
what is it?
Well, you got to put your name, your address, your phone number, your email.
Oh, hell no. Oh, no.
In the event that someone comes up because they're a public place, they don't know, they take tours to West Village. So in the event something happens, they'll be able to get in touch with you, and then it can be traced, so to speak. And it's funny because I'm telling you, I'm not against it. I'm all for it. Contact me. If I was there and something happened, contact me first. So I have no problem with it. And it's so funny because you can tell that the people that are working the door or whatever, they get it. They get it from a lot of people who are on this side of the fence and that side of the fence, and they're exhausted. So what do you do? So I just make jokes with the guy like, hey, you do this every day, right? And he was like, well, we've only been open 5 days and I'm just happy to be back working. And I'm like, you know what, bro? I'm with you when you're right.
That's what's up.
That was my weekend. It was great.
That's what's up.
What about you, Fo? What you do this weekend?
No, the weekend stuff ain't changed because I was booed up, but Jermaine already knows. I'm not going to say it on the air, but we are going to have a very, very, very special guest in April. That's super influential. Yeah, it's going to get crazy.
So you was working this weekend?
Nah, I just got a phone call. I got a phone call while I was in the supermarket earlier, and I said, oh. Then I asked him, and when I asked him the question, he said, sure, no problem. So I just look at that as it's the universe saying it is our time. It's just a matter of being patient and waiting. So I'm most definitely cool with that. For me, I ain't mentioning nothing about no weekends. All I care about is getting this guest on the show because I can't stop smiling. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to Main One, so you can go ahead and say what he needs to say.
Well,
absolutely.
I don't have much to say.
Coach,
no current events. We're not doing current events.
I spent most of today prepping for the show and getting ready for our guests, make sure everything was right in line. So I think Jay wanted to talk on a current event real quick before we bring our guests on. So we're gonna let Jay touch on her current event that she wanted to talk about, and then we'll bring our special guests on.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to touch. This is not going to take long. I want to give my condolences out to the families that's right there in my home state of Georgia. The shootings that took place last week. Now there's a whole thing with the whole, Asian lives and, all of us being on that same page, that same camaraderie. And listen, first thing I want to say is I'm very sensitive to that because no one deserves that. But I think what happened, was after that it happened, that it's been a very big thing with people saying Asian lives matters and we all need to be on the same page. It's just like Black Lives Matter and it's just like this and that. And what I've been seeing on social media is been on both sides of the spectrum, meaning you have people that say, you know what, this has nothing to do with that. But then you have other people that say, hey, I stand along with my Asian brothers and sisters. It's been a whole lot. And I can honestly say that I'm sensitive to the fact that no one deserves that. I'm going to say that first. But at the end of the day, we're still trying to get on, our, page of being equal in a lot of situations. So it's kind of hard for me to change my attention from that particular narrative in that situation, because I don't want y'all to forget that our vice president is Asian American. And she's the first. So I'm going to be very sensitive to it. I'm going to be very into that. But at the end of the day, I've got to stand with what I need to stand with and what I believe in and what I support. And I support, this particular cause. So, I mean, did you guys even hear about this? Have y'all been following it at all on like Instagram and Twitter and all that?
I followed it a little bit, and to me, it's typical of what our media does and what our government does. They know how to turn the narrative. So see how quickly the narrative has turned away from the Black community and what we need to somebody else's needs. So I'm used to it. I'm kind of numb to it. So I saw it coming. With some other stuff that was happening prior to this, just little small stuff where you see things about Asians getting beat up here and there and all this kind of stuff, and then I just started watching it snowball into something big that happened. So to me it's just a bait and switch, and that's just typical of what our government does. So I won't touch on that.
And for me, it was like, and for me, and that's why I said we're just going to lightly touch, because I do not want to give this that much attention in that regard. But at the end of the day, I do want to send my condolences out to the families, because no one deserves that. Let's leave it for that.
Yeah.
So, I just want to say that, but at the end of the day, this is, to me, it's not the same type of attention that I think that, it should be getting in that regard, as far as, Black Lives Matter and this and that, because it's a lot of controversial things that was happening during that time. So anyway, I'm so excited because I feel like this is the perfect lead in to our history, our education and all that. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do it, Jermaine.
Okay. So folks, buckle your seatbelts. We've been excited for about, I would say about a month now, since we confirmed that this special guest was going to be on the show. I mean, a historian, he's a professor, an educator, He's one of our community's greatest treasures, and this is what our show is about. Is about showcasing our community's greatest treasures. He's been in critically acclaimed documentaries with Tariq, Nasheed, Hidden Colors 1, 2, 3, and 4. The Haitian Revolution of 1804, the hidden history of the Haitian Revolution. Additionally, he was featured in the hit documentary Out of Darkness and Heavy is the Crown. So I'm not going to spend too much of reading his accolades because I want him to have I want him to, really be the star of the show. So without further ado, I want to introduce somebody that I haven't met personally. I hope to someday meet him personally. Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene. We're going to welcome him to the show.
All right. Hotep family, thank you so much. I really appreciate and respect all the work that you do. And I just thank you for inviting me on your program to get this time to talk to the community, because there are so many things going on around us. And as African-American people, we have to be very clear about what we're looking at. And, Sister J, when I heard you speak and and we always have to do this, when we say, first I send my regards out and my sympathies, for all those who have been hurt.
Absolutely.
Never, Sister J, Ma'at demands that there be truth and justice and harmony. Ma'at doesn't look at culture. Ma'at is nature. She is cosmic. And so when we look at things, at least I'm speaking about myself. When I see things, I try to put them in proper perspective as an African American, because the way in which we should be looking at what's happening to our brothers and sisters from Asia is very unique. And we have to separate things. Okay. We have to separate the idea of attacking an innocent individual because of their cultural background and then going into a store owned by somebody and they disrespect us. We have to separate those two things.
Yes.
And it's very important because I have been aware of certain situations that have happened that I have, or they have attempted to treat me in a way that is inappropriate as a person. Okay. Mm-hmm. When I go into a restaurant and I don't see no tables, that tells me come in, order your food and get out.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want you here. And so with all of this balance, as African Americans, we have to balance our experiences and be able to come forward with ma'at, which is balance, and speak on the issue without having to feel that, okay, if I say something, then I'm adding to it. I'm not adding anything to it. It's important that as we begin to look at this situation, look, I marched with Dr. King in 1965 in Boston. I stood in the presence of Malcolm X when I was 7 years old. I've been doing this for a while, and there's one thing that I know. 50 years ago, we told peoples of Asian descent, we told our brothers and sisters of Spanish-speaking background, we told Arabs coming to America, look, join us. Join us. Help. What we're doing will help you, because they come after us at night so they can come at you in the morning. And if you don't join us now, you will pay a price in the future. One of the characteristics of Ma'at is reciprocity. And reciprocity says, you shall reap what you sow. What goes around comes. Now, if you had had this much enthusiasm 50 years ago, we wouldn't be in this now.
Right.
So my question, because the reality is it's not an Asian hate problem.
No.
It's not Black Lives Matter. It is not building up borders to keep our brothers and sisters from Central and South America from coming up. It's not about declining the right for Muslims to come to America. This is not the problem. Neely Fuller tells us what the problem is. Neely Fuller tells us when he wrote his book, The Compensatory Code of White Supremacy, if you are not looking If you are trying to figure out how to solve a problem and the cornerstone to your problem ain't white supremacy, you ain't dealing with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is not our problem. This is their problem. I'd say black folk don't have a problem. White folk have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Black folk problem is white folks' problem.
White folks'
and
problem.
they're cray-cray.
And facts, Professor.
Okay,
That's
now, fam, when we talk about cray-cray, cray-cray is not crazy. Cray-cray is when you should have been institutionalized 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if you continued acting the way you were acting, you should have been medicated for the past 6.
Mm.
We're dealing with the people who are beginning to, or have been unfolding from when they first came out of the ice mountains of Europe. They've been doing this for a very long time. You know, when Asians first were allowed in the country in the mid to 1800s, they were brought here so that black folk wouldn't get jobs.
Really?
Because, well, and also we don't look at the immigrant situation properly. Immigration didn't start in 1920s.
Right.
Immigration started in 1870.
Ah.
And 1870 was part of what brought into Jim Crow, because what happened in of course, the so-called emancipation, going to leave it there for now. But when black folk got the ability to do certain things, they went to school. And I mean, black folk really tore up the country. And when I say that, I mean that in a positive sense. Yeah. They studied, they got jobs, they became senators. And the European that was here said, oh, no, we can't have this. We didn't free them for that. We freed them for economic reasons. Because no matter what anybody tell you, Africans weren't, the Civil War was not fought over freeing black people.
Facts.
Now, the emancipation of African people was important because it dealt with capitalism. It dealt with the fact that in capitalism, the cornerstone to capitalism is the ability to be able to match the supply with the demand. That's what makes it happen. You want something, I'll get it for you. But if you want something and I can't give it to you, then there's a problem. Also, if I have a whole bunch of something and you don't want it, that's a problem. When the supply is larger than the demand. When Africans were enslaved over time here in the United States and in the Caribbean, but I'm speaking specifically about the United States, when they were enslaved and they worked for free. And not only did they work for free, they were the ones that created the inventions. How could a European invent something that went to something that they didn't do? So when you're looking at the cotton gin, when you're looking at mass production of things, it was Africans' ingenuity in order for them not to get caught up in having to do all that work. Because I don't know if folk picked cotton before, but I practiced it one time. That's breaking.
You know, and it seems that history just teaches us here that particular contraption was the first of its kind.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And what I am now learning, and I'm not afraid to say this, I am now really digging into the history of us, thanks to you and a few others, that's not true. These things were around already.
It
wasn't.
And we had it in Africa.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
No, it wasn't. And it wasn't just in America. We had different types of machines in Africa.
Wow.
And so it becomes important that we just realize what it is that's going on. And when Africans started doing this, pretty soon they developed machines that could produce things that it might take 4 Africans to do in one day. It took 1 African to do in 1 hour, which means that your supply was going to be larger than your demand. At the same time, what we call European economy was choking to death because there was too much material, but too little demand. So to do that, they had to create a system that we today call capitalism. And in this capitalism, they know that if you're going to pay for an African, if you can buy one African for $300 for life, or you have to pay somebody $300 a year, let's say, what would you do? You would buy the African because you save money. And the object of capitalism is to save money. But the suffocation came that if you do that, then you got to free the Africans. And the South said, no, we ain't freeing no Africans. This is how we make our money. We can sell to Europe. We can sell to other parts of the world. We don't have to sell to you because the North and South split, where the North became the industrial area and the South became the agricultural area, and for a lot of different reasons. And so the North was dependent on the South for its raw materials. So the North said, well, you can't sell anything. And the South said, yeah, I can. South said, in fact, I don't even want to talk to you no more about this. I'm going to secede from the Union. And the North said, you can't secede. And the South said, why not? They say, well, what would we do? They say, well, that's a personal problem to me.
Right.
You have to find a way.
It was going to cripple the economy.
That's it. And that's how, and the South said, we're seceding. North said, no, you're not. South said, yes, we are. Watch. Jefferson Davis.
They tried it.
And
they absolutely tried it.
And that's the Civil War. It wasn't for us. In fact, the 3/5 clause didn't apply to us. They didn't consider
3/5 clause.
Yeah, that didn't apply to us. That applied to the landowner because the amount of votes you got was determined by how much property you had.
Okay.
And so to do that, you got a certain amount of votes according to your property, your cattle, your horses, and your Africans. And so to appease the landowners, they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. For y'all to get your votes, what we're going to do is this. The amount of Africans that you have, every African you have is going to be worth 3/5 of a human being. So if you have 5 Africans, that's 3 votes. It had nothing to do with them looking at us as 3/5 of a human. We were still chattel. It was about the European. It wasn't about the African. And it wasn't about all Europeans. It was about the European landowner that you're dealing with. And you're dealing with the male, white, Christian. That's who you're dealing with right now. And so when Africans were freed, interesting story about what happened to Africans, and very few people have really studied what happened to the Africans that were on the plantation. Well, the North set up camps. Just like you see them camps down there in Texas and those places where they're putting young Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
That's what they did with us after.
Yeah, it was the same thing.
It's the same exact thing. We told them this. We've been through this 400 years. We told them what was going down. Wake up. We told them 50 years ago. I told them 50 years ago. Wake up. They're going to come after you too. Yeah. Because they look at us all as ends. I'm not going to use the word for the nature because I don't know if that word is.
It's okay.
But they call Asians slant-eyed ends. They called Spanish-speaking ends. And the Arabs, they call sand ends. They're all ends. Jay-Z, you can be rich, you're still an end.
Right.
You could be tall and still an end. If you're black, you're an end. If you're melanated, you're an end. That's all it is to it. We've been through this 400 years. So, okay, here's what happens. So they start bringing in, because now remember, economy is going to boom. And there's two aspects of that pushes an economy into its highest point: transportation, communication. That's what you improve. Transportation, communication. Communication says what you want, transportation gets it there. So they started building the railroad. And so they brought Africans in, and they brought Asians in from China, And they had that law, the Chinese exclusionary law, didn't let no women in because we wasn't bringing you in here to live. You working on the railroad. That's all. And when you finish working on the railroad, you got to go back. And if by chance you're lucky enough to hang out in America, there's only two things we're going to let you do. And both of them is considered by society to be the role of women. And that's the birth of the Chinese restaurant and the Chinese laundry. They were only allowed to serve food or clean your clothes. They should have known that in 1880, 1885. You are a persona non grata. They don't want you here. They just want you to work and go back home. Build their railroad, go back home. This is history. Don't believe me. Study Asian. I've studied Asian history. And I know what happened. Now let me bring you up into the 1860s. I'm sorry, the 1960s with the African American movement, human rights and civil rights, because all that didn't start in the 60s. That started in 1945 when brothers and sisters came back from World War II, and they had been given medals for killing Germans and Japanese and Italians. They came back home, got on the bus, Mississippi. White man say, "Get to the back of the bus, you N." And that brother said, "You know something? I got a medal for killing someone that looked just like you.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't going to the back of that bus." And in 1945, and not only that, you should see what the sisters were doing. My aunt was a WAC. That was the name of it, Women Army Corps, WAC. You should see what the women were doing during World War II. The sisters was tearing it up.
What were they doing?
They were doing, well, first of all, they were only allowed to do certain things, but undercover in exposure to killing people. They be poisoning people. They acted as, same thing Harriet Tubman did. They acted as spies because, you see, it's interesting with male chauvinism, particularly European male chauvinism.
Mm-hmm.
White men cannot imagine that black women can be supreme. They just don't see that. That's why they felt so comfortable speaking in front of the African woman and some African men. They felt very free to talk. And black people be listening to what they're saying. And so women were fighting. They were poisoning people. They were doing all sorts of things in World War II. So that's something that's real. So, you know, when people are talking about the role of women in war, some of the mightiest warriors in the world have been women. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you something else. I've taught every level. I've taught every grade. I've taught every subject. I have been in schoolyards before. Let me just give you 411. I would rather break up a fight between young brothers than young sisters. Because sisters know how to use every part of their body as a weapon. They be hitting you. See, brothers try to duke it, right? And I'm staying away from weapons, but brothers duke it out, right, with the dukes. But sisters be hitting with elbows and wrists. Anything that they can get you, they gonna get you.
Right.
Sisters can play when they fight.
So, because, Professor, I've seen some of these fights. I know what you speak of.
Oh, yeah. Really? Let me tell you.
Ooh.
I've had to break them up, and I stand back. I say, "Okay, sisters, now you know this ain't right. Y'all going to the principal's office. I'm not going to get in between there now, but I'm just talking to you because I want y'all to break up because, you know, it's a nice day out here. Just why don't you?" But I don't get in the middle of it. So, you know, people underestimated the power and the majesty of sisters in the Women Army Corps. And so this is what led to what would come and be, it was the powder keg that made it happen, that took it to its next level. There was a lot of things that happened, okay? But the one thing that took it off was Emmett Till in 1955.
Yes, Lord. Yes.
And blessings on his mother. You know, as a father, loving my children, I give Emmett Till's mother all the credit in the world for being brave enough, courageous enough to allow the picture of her son in the sarcophagus or the coffin to be seen by the world. It took a lot out of her to do that because she wanted the world to see what they had done to her son.
Mm-hmm. And you know that was very controversial during that time because no one was doing that at all. Mm-hmm. And I think that there was a bravery in her and that family that was necessary for us today. No one was doing that. And it was, I mean, I remember the first time that I, started to read up on the article, and because, that's one of those stories that really don't get a lot of attention, so to speak. And I happened to find it. And when I found it, it made me want to cry. It made me want to cry reading the article, looking at the pictures, although they were in black and white. But my thing was, I am trying to imagine her as a mother. I'm a mother. Mm-hmm. Imagine what that had to take. And we weren't doing that. That was something that was so brave. And I cannot express to you enough how much I think the world needed to see that.
Professor, I want you to go back on to the as far as on the immigration. I want to delve back into that because Fu and I, we always get into these conversations with other people about how damaging these immigration policies have been, especially with this new incoming administration. And after reading your bio, I know you have political science, a bachelor's degree in political science. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, international politics.
International politics. So the immigration, it not saying that I don't think we should bring people should not come over here for wanting a better life, but I think it does a detriment to our community because they've been doing it for so long. Just a point that you touched on not too long ago in the 60s during the civil rights movement, while Black folk were fighting for equality and trying to be assimilated into society and be accepted, they were bringing these Koreans over, giving them grants and all kind of stuff while we were here fighting for those same rights. So can you touch on that a little bit?
Well, again, continuing the concept of the story that we were talking about going into the 60s, this is when you see at this time, and for the younger generation who may not remember this or have experienced this, but we were known as Negroes. And they didn't even say Negro Americans.
Right.
They said, okay, that's who we were. And then at some point we decided, we as a community said, no, we're going to be known as Black Americans. That's the title we want, Black Americans, to connect us to America. Okay. And what then happened in the 1965 with the Civil Rights Law, the Civil Rights Law broke down a lot of laws. When African people got their rights, every other ism that was a schism, I'm talking about all these other separate little groups, women's groups, the Native American group, the Hispanic group, the Asian group, everybody came and was able to capitalize and benefit off our struggle, but not help us. I'm not speaking in absolutes. There were people of all different cultural backgrounds that were part of the civil rights movement.
Right.
So I don't want to sound like I'm saying that it was nobody else. There were, but as groups, they did not help us. And that's the significant difference in what I'm talking about right now. As groups, they did not stand with us. But the Asian community decided in the 60s that they were now going to be called, because remember what we called Asians, just like they call Black folk Negroes, they call Asian people, no matter where you were, they call you Orientals.
Yeah. Yes.
See, when we understand the history of this is why I'm saying to us as a people, we have to look at this from an African-American perspective. As an African, we have to look at this and not get caught up in all of these other little situations. Because if I go into your store, you disrespect me, I'm on you, not because you Asian, but because you disrespectful. And we have to be free to be able to do that and not be afraid to be told, well, you're anti. I'm not anti you. I'm anti inappropriate behavior.
Exactly. And it's not hatred, and it's not this and that. It's what it is. Exactly.
But then, of course, we could all solve the problem, because I ain't never seen a soul food restaurant in Chinatown.
Mm.
I have. Well,
I have never seen a soul food restaurant in China. Now, there may be, but I have never been in a place in a Chinatown where I have seen a soul food restaurant run by black folk, for black folk, serving soul food.
Mm.
No.
Okay. And it's not because they don't like it. It's because they won't support it.
It doesn't happen.
And if you don't support it, you have to close. Okay. And so they decided to become Asian American. Then in 1980, an Asian was, I forget his name, an Asian was attacked in California and beat bad. And that started an understanding of where we are. But they still stayed silent. With all that we went through, with all George Floyd, with all Breonna Taylor, with all the Sandra Bland, I can go back in history, family, all of the decades, all of the years that we have watched the African people be treated this way.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard nobody outside of the African American community as a group come and say, let us help you. And now that we are where we are, post 45, now everybody want to talk about let's get together,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't have a problem with. But you got to come to me. I ain't coming to you.
And that's what
I ain't joining yours.
And that's what I was saying earlier. I don't want to be insensitive to that, because hate is hate, when that happens. But what I cannot do, I cannot support this effort when my own effort has not been, progressed in time. So I guess my question to you is, when you think about, how we rally around that now, and we take that on, in comparison to the 60s and 70s, what do you think changed, Professor? What do you think actually changed? Because it was so many different things that just started to happen. I'm just curious to know, because you've seen this, you've lived it out, you've been a part of it. What has changed about this climate that we're in now? And how do we get back to that?
One second, please, because that right there is going to touch on something else. And Jay, please hold on to that question.
Sure.
Master teacher, before we get into this, can you please tell the world how you became who you became? Because you're so well respected in the community, and your knowledge is amazing. Now you're about to touch, answer her question. I want to hear it. But I
can wait. It's a different.
People want to know, how did Kaba Hiawatha Kamene turn into this man? Because we talk on the phone. From now on, you master teacher. That's straight up and down. I'm gonna call you master teacher. But we want to know how you got started and your journey of how you got to where you are right now.
And please correct us, Professor, if we're not saying that last name just right.
Oh, you can call me. You call me Brother Kaba. I go by Brother Kaba. Last name is Kamene.
Kamene. Okay.
Okay. But I go by Brother Kaba because to me, the highest form of respect. I don't care, you doctor, reverend, minister, Umar. It don't make a difference where you are. The highest form of, to me, the highest form of respect that I could pay another human is to consider them my brother or sister.
Right.
That's the highest accolade that you could give somebody. Because I've seen people don't have a doctor, they don't have a reverend, they don't have minister, they don't have iman, they have no title, but they're human beings, and they deserve recognition for that.
Yeah.
And addressing it as brother is the highest form. People call me doctor. I don't have a doctorate. I have 2 master's degrees, one in history and one in education supervision and administration. But when I was in New York, that's why I was listening to you earlier, Jay, saying that you were on the subway station in New York on Friday.
Yes.
I used to go to 125th Street, and I would talk on the corner. I would teach on the corner.
Really?
Near the Teresa Hotel. Back in the day, they did this for years. They did this for centuries. I said one day, I think I'm gonna come in and just gonna stand on the corner of 120 where Nelson Mandela was when he came to speak in New York. That's the corner that I used to speak on.
Yes, I heard about that.
Where they set that up in the 90s for him to speak. David Dinkins was the mayor and everybody, and they had Nelson Mandela speak. That corner was where African scholars used to go out there and preach. They used to get up on a ladder. If you saw Spike Lee's movie, Malcolm X, there's a scene where you have all, everybody's on the street talking to the people. There's people up on ladders. There's people. Well, that's what I used to do. I used to just go and talk. In fact, you could go to YouTube and you can see me talking on 125th Street, right across the street from the Apollo Theater.
Okay.
So my thing was to go out into the street and talk to the people. And that's where I got the name Doctor from. Because people say, oh, there's Doctor. And that it first started as Dr. Booker T before I corrected my name in 2002. And they say, oh, there's Dr. Booker T. And then Dr. Booker T became Dr. Kaba. But I'll tell you this, that doctorate that the community's given me is the highest form of compliment I could receive. I'd rather have a doctorate from the community than the highest form of college. And so, titles don't mean anything to me. When people, like when I come on the show, people say, how can I introduce you? I say, introduce me as teacher, and then let me prove everything that you were going to say. Because a lot of people get up and they have this long resume, but then at the end of their presentation, you wonder what did they say? So I believe that judging me by my work, judge me by my presentation. And my brother Fu, the question that you ask comes from a deep dedication. It comes from a time that I don't know any better. I've always been on this track. I was born Booker T. My junior father was Booker T. Senior. He was born and raised in Alabama. Came to New York when he was in his 20s, and belonged to the Mother AME Zion Church, whose pastor was Reverend Benjamin Robeson, brother to Paul Robeson. So I grew up in an environment, and mind you, I was born 2 years before Emmett Till was murdered. So when I was born into this movement that was rising. I was born in a project down in New York. Sister, you may know, across from Lincoln Center, there's a project known as the Amsterdam Projects.
I know it.
That's where I was born and raised. 63rd Street and Amsterdam Avenue. That's where I was born and raised. And I spent 15 years in those projects before we moved. And that was where I grew. And that's where I became conscious of the world around me. And because of my deep consciousness, but let me tell you this, because in the community where I grew up in, there were many people's Spanish-speaking descent, particularly from Puerto Rico. And because of that, hanging out with my friends and going to Jose's house or Juan or Rosa, wherever I was going, I was immersed in the Spanish-speaking culture as part of my understanding of who I was as an African American. And I had a friend whose family practiced Santeria, which is the African form of the Spanish-speaking form of the Orishas of the Yoruba.
Wow.
The French is Voodoo, the Portuguese is Candomblé, and whether pastors want to admit it or not, the Baptist Church is straight up out of Africa. So don't even try to make believe that your call and response didn't come from Africa. Okay, that dance by the pulpit, that's Africa. We can go back. This is what it was. But in going to these activities, grew up Roman Catholic. I was a choir boy, altar boy.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Oh wow.
Environment. This is what we do, and this is how we evolve as a people. And we have no regrets for what our experiences were, because just as I'm going to end this part of the question, everything that I experienced, good and not so good, got me to sit here today to talk to you. And so I would go to their home. They be practicing Santeria. They be doing that drumming, and whoa, they be doing all sorts of things. I saw the chickens off to the side. Okay, they did what they had to do. We ate arroz con pollo y habichuela, rice and beans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what we did. And I was feeling that music. When they was drumming, I was moving, and everybody would say, "Mira Skip, look at Skip," because my nickname is Skip. They say, "Mira Skip, look at him, baila." Yeah, I was dancing, grooving, getting into it. The point I'm making is that my first introduction to Africa, because I would meet Dr. John Henry Clark when I was 12 and a half.
Wow.
Okay. He was my intellectual father. But my first introduction to Africa was not history. It was spirituality. And that's very interesting because now I look back when I was 7 and 8 and 9 years old, and they would be calling on Jemaja and Obatala and Shango, Oshun. I was in the middle of this, and I was vibing, and they had these black statues of las siete potencias, the 7 powers, and that was Espiritismo. This is part of the Native American African contribution to Santeria and to the spiritual system. And so, my experiences come out of the fact that my first introduction to Africa was not historical, it was spiritual. And deeply embedded in that experience was a love for Africa and African people. And that further concretized my dedication in understanding from a spiritual perspective that you've been given a divine gift and you got to develop that divine gift. Dr. Clark would further down the road tell me, perfect your craft. He always say, perfect your craft, which meant that no matter where you think you are, you can always do better. Perfect your craft. If you're writing, write more, write better, learn how to write better. If you're singing, learn how to sing better. If you drive a bus, become a better bus driver. Perfect your craft. Be the best at what you do. And so I would go through the process, and I want to be an astronaut. By the time I got out of high school, but I'm gonna tell you an interesting story. I went to a Catholic school. It's located someplace in New York, 60th Street, right down the block from my projects. And I went there all 8 years of my life. Well, 9 years, including kindergarten. And I remember like 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, there's a brother used to come down the street. I have never saw nobody look like this man in my life. As we went along, we would dance around him because we ain't never saw nobody that tall before. And he was a good brother. He used to palm our heads and make it a basketball. And we dance around. But now he was going to high school around the corner to Powell Memorial. That's the high school that I would go to when I graduated. I'm talking about what we call the brother Lou Alcindor. Today he's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I saw him every day when he was going to school. We'd be on the block waiting to go into our school, but we used to form outside in the street. But people that were coming through would walk through that street, 60th Street. Let me tell you something. 60th Street, to know it comes up to a hill in the middle. It's like you start on the bottom and you walk up a hill and then you walk down to what we call Columbus Avenue. Yeah. When we were on one side of the street, we could see Kareem's head
what?
on the other side. Wow. That's how tall he was. He was 7 feet at this time.
Yeah.
We'd never seen nobody like this. Let me tell you another story about my experience, because these are little personal things that I may not say normally, but since you asked me, I'm gonna tell you this story.
We're interested, yeah.
There was in the project on the corner, 64th Street, there was a bar. It's called Century Bar. This is where all the brothers used to go and get diced. And there was a brother that used to always go in there. And boy, my man would just he would get as high as a kite. And then he would walk down, he'd come out the bar, and then he'd walk down 63rd Street, and he'd be flailing this Persian coat with this Persian hat. And my daddy said, Junior, let me tell you something. He said, that man right there. He said that man, when he go to Europe, he's a musician. When he go to Europe, the police have to come to meet his plane because there's so many people at the airport ready to welcome him. And he said, look how he walked down that street right there. Ain't nobody even know who he is. And what he used to do is, me and my boys used to follow him because we knew he was important because what my father told me and what we all knew about him. And he would get down into a circle. It was a circle. Today, the circle is named after him. And he'd turn his ring around and he'd get on the pole and he'd hold the pole because he used to kick some heron too. So between the heron and straight no chaser, this brother was in another planet. He would hold on to the pole and then he would bang on the pole and he'd close his eyes and kick back his head and he'd make a sound. The whole time he was banging on the pole. Okay. What I remember about him, this brother was so melanated that the inside of, right across the middle of his lip, all that was melanated dark. But then everything coming in was red. The red lip on the inside, the red tongue, all of his insides was red. So when he would kick back and open his mouth, I would be looking up and I say, wow, look at that. I mean, he's so melanated. He had the Persian hat on. The brother was just banging on the pole. And we say, I'm talking about Thelonious Monk.
Okay. Oh my goodness, Thelonious Monk.
Yeah, we used to call him Mr. T Monk. And he'd be there banging on the pole, and he say, "Oh, Mr. T Monk, can we stay listening to you make music?" He said, "Well, if y'all just shut up, and just listen, we can do this." and then he would slide down the pole in a nod, and we'd all watch. And then all of a sudden, he'd start getting back up, banging on the pole, holding on. And him holding on to the pole stopped him from falling.
Wow.
Because he just might have fell because the brother was deep inside.
Yeah, he was in there.
He was there.
But musically a genius. And I've heard so many stories about Thelonious. And can I tell you, this is just me. I've been on the circuit as a musician in New York. I've been so blessed to do this. And I have heard stories about people, the greats, the ones that, you hear about, but you may not hear about. But Thelonious Monk was the one that I was like, wow. And then there was what's his name? Trumpet player that would sell his trumpet, give his trumpet to the pawn shop and then come back and get it at some point. I mean, it was just wow. Yeah. And the funny thing is, Professor, a lot of people do not know who Thelonious Monk is. Do you know that?
That's right.
They have no clue.
Yes, I do, my sister.
Yes,
I do. Yeah, and that's what my father was telling us as young people. He said, respect that man. Know who that man is.
Yeah.
That man, police come meet his airplane when he lands in Europe. And my father used to say, yup. Well, he was a Bama brother, so he pronounced it yup. But those are my memories of growing up in the projects. We had our times, but we also had good times. And I've never been one to present myself to the community talking about the hard times we've had, because I know you've had them hard times too in the neighborhood you grew up in. So I don't need to rehash that. But we did have good people that worked hard trying to make things happen. And with all of their challenges, no matter drugs or alcohol or whatever it was, they still struggled. They still were family people. They still tried to make a name for themselves. And the one thing I remember about there was a brother named Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson used to be a boxer. And Joe Jackson used to steal things from the truck. And he was explaining to us how he
I'm sorry. I'm with you though. I'm with you.
He would explain to us how he took like coats off a truck in the back on West End Avenue. And the brother would say, here's what we do, man. Check this out, curly top. You too, nigger top. Check this out. He said, I put my hand in the thing and I slide it down the whole truck, and my boys are down on the other side with the barrel ready to grab the coats, and then we go on, bruh, and then we go on. But here's the key about Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson, for those that know, you can set up maybe something in your own community to understand, but in Central Park, around 59th Street, the same place I'm talking about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor used to come out to the train station. Well, if you go, if you cross the street going the other way, you're in Central Park, okay? And in Central Park, they had these stone tables where you could play checkers or chess, right? And Joe Jackson used to go there, and there was people of all different cultures used to come, mainly people of European descent. But Joe Jackson used to play chess, and he used to say to me and my friend that he'd see frequently. He said, "Hey man, you young brother, you want to make some money?" He said, "Come on over to Central Park, man. Be by that table there, man. There's something I want you to do." And so we would go, and Joe Jackson would be there playing chess with a white man. And what Joe Jackson told us before we actually got there, he said, I want you to keep your eye on that white man because he might try to cheat me. And I didn't quite understand what Joe Jackson meant in the beginning, but then I understood the first time I understood, because Joe Jackson would nod out at the table playing chess. And he was afraid that the white man was going to move those characters around on the chess table so he could win, because they were playing for money.
Okay.
And so with us being at the table, Joe could nod out for, a few seconds up to a minute and then pop out and he'd win. I never saw Joe Jackson lose playing chess with white people who thought they knew how to play chess. This is who we're from. Even with our frailties, even with our mishaps, in our pain, we are still a glorious people. That's the message I'm trying to get to us. We're good. And our sisters are as good as the brothers are.
Yeah.
Respect that. Understand that. And understand together we can make things happen.
And Professor, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. When you talking about your upbringing, I was born and raised in Brooklyn as well. Well, in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And I remember, it being community, and that's something that we lost as time has gone on. We've lost the sense of community because the whole block where everybody knew each other. Then, not saying that we were all, everybody were best friends, but we all knew each other. And I couldn't do something down the block before I got to the house. My mama already heard about what I did, so I couldn't lie to her because everybody already done told on me and all that kind of stuff. So we had a community that, what they said, it takes a village to raise a child, and we've some way we've lost that throughout the years. So I think we need to somehow get back to that if we can.
And that is the African tradition. We have been inundated with so many challenges, so many things that have hit us. And Kwame Ture used to always tell us, the closer you get to God, the closer the devil gets to you. My sister, earlier you had asked what got us here. What got us here was our success. The reason why everybody going buck wild crazy now is because of Black people's success. Clearly, African-American success. Now, some people might take issue. We changed America. If you want to know what democracy is like in America, ask what conditions are Black folk in. That is where democracy is in America. And right now, America got their knee on Black people's neck. There is no democracy here. And also, please understand what these folk are doing here. I was in a documentary called Race War. And in this documentary, there was Jared Taylor, who is the grandfather of white supremacy. And there was Richard Spencer. And at the end of the premiere, Jared Taylor and I went back and forth with each other for a while. Some people call it debate, but I can see that Zahir has put down in the message center, what Dr. Clark used to say, I only debate with my equals, everyone else I teach.
There you go.
Another thing Dr. Clark Dr. Clark used to always say, in order to have a debate, you have to have two sides. You don't have a side. White folk ain't got no side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I go into all of my conversations knowing they don't have a side. I'm going to make you forfeit this conversation one way or
another. I was about to say that.
One way, and by any means necessary, I'm going to make that happen because I know you don't have a side. And you see, the other thing, family, about this whole concept is the idea that, when I started speaking, the first thing I said is I would have liked to have told you, my ego would have liked to have told you that I said the most important thing in this movie. Now, next to that, I would like to tell you that a black person told you the most important thing in this movie. He said, but in being honest, I have to tell you the truth. The person that said the most important thing in this movie for all of us to walk out of this movie house forever remembering is what Richard Spencer told you. And what Richard Spencer said in that movie on camera is it ain't about morality. It's about winning. Mm. He said morality is weakness. What did that guy say about that guy that voted in favor of what the Democrats wanted? He said, I didn't send you there to do the right thing. I sent you there because we must win. Mm-hmm. What they sell their mother, they lie, steal, and cheat. I'm not talking about all of them. I'm talking as a group. There are exceptions to all rules. I don't speak in absolutes, but I ain't got time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to say, when we talk about good white people, which exist, but check this. He said, there's 1,000 wolves outside your door. 100 of them would put their life on the line to protect you. The only challenge is when you look out your window, you don't know where those 100 are. Are you willing to go outside? See, I ain't got time to look.
Great question.
I don't have time to look for good white people. I know you're there, but in that mix, you all look alike to me. So, like I tell people, I'm prejudiced. I prejudge. And if you think I shouldn't prejudge you, then you ain't looking out for my better interests. You ought to encourage me to hold you suspect until you prove to me you're not like the other 900.
Because in that regard, you do not understand us, and you're not trying to. You are yourself prejudging because you don't understand.
And you're just trying to look out for yourself to make yourself feel good. Right. Like you're not one of those people. You may not be one of those people. Then stop acting like. Mm-hmm. Edwin Kobe used to always say, he said, Booker T. He's from Dominica in the Caribbean, not the Dominican Republic, the island of Dominica. He used to say, Booker T, don't tell me nothing about no good white people, because good white people act as shields for the bad ones. Mm.
And the one thing I hate when people I really despise because they use this as a cover. They say I don't see color, which is bull crap because you do see color. Everybody sees color.
And hey,
that's the first thing. That's the first thing you see. But like you said, prove to me otherwise that you're different.
That's my bottom line. That is how I operate. And if you don't see color, stay away from me because you blind.
Uncle Kaba, we have a guest, and this is one of my childhood friends. He has a question. He has a question for you, but he's gonna come on camera.
What's going on, family? Everybody, how y'all doing?
Yo, what's up, KZ?
What's going on? Listen. The show is getting better every week.
KZ, you're always gonna get that,
I appreciate it, Jay. I appreciate it. Makes me feel. Listen, man, I'm seeing production now.
Of course, Professor. He and I. Yeah, we do this. We do this.
I love it. But for the brother that's on, man, you taking me back, man. You're taking me back. And I was asking you to ask you if you know a sister named Zulatifa. I don't know if you ever came.
Where would I know her from, brother?
From Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey, Panther
Oh,
member.
wow.
She's in the movement for years. From Panther to I don't want to say too much, but she's been around. It's my mother. It's my mother. The reason why I'm asking is because I was raised by her. So a lot of the things that you're telling me, and a lot of the stories, they're like taking me back to being in the corners, listening to Dr. Ben and listening to Dr. Clark talk in person.
Okay. Where do you see them speak? Where do you? Because I speak at Source of Knowledge in Newark on Broad Street.
You ain't saying nothing but a word about Source of Knowledge, brother. Source of Knowledge.
Yes.
I mean,
okay. Oh, we home now.
Listen, and I was always on the hip. I was always on the hip. So we talking Source of Knowledge. We're talking Essex County College so many times. We're talking Newark School used to be on the corner of Urban Turner and Springfield Avenue before they knocked the projects down. She used to teach dance class there, late 70s, early 80s. You may have crossed paths with her. You had to. Like she's been going to Africa every year since 1979. And every year she would bring clothes and stuff for the people in Senegal. And when I turned 5 on the Kente village in Senegal. Well, actually outside of Dakar, and my godmother was Binta Kente, who was the queen of the Kentes. So I was raised in this.
Yes.
And I'm listening to you talk and I'm going, oh my God, this guy is like, he's taking me back to eras, because my father, country boy from the South, and he was a photographer for the Afro newspaper.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the Afro newspaper back in the 70s and 80s. Brother Mr. Queen, who used to run it. So my dad was a photographer. My mother was a reporter.
Wow.
So I have like the weirdest stories of my dad interviewing Muhammad Ali and Leon Spinks before the fight. Like just I got so many photos and stuff of just being like on the hip. I was always on the hip of my parents. So whenever they went somewhere, I went. So when they went to martial art class with Master Floyd, my mother studied under Master Floyd. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but see, so and when you're talking, I'm going, me and this brother may have been in the same circle many a time.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking at BAM. We would go up to BAM in Brooklyn. It would just be endless hours of knowledge. And I remember sitting there looking at this old man talk with his eyes closed. And he would say some of the most profound stuff. And I'm like 7, 8 years old, and I'm going, this brother is like, this man is bad. And I was telling Fu, I said, Fu, you're headed down this path of enlightenment. And I said, and Fu would tell you, I said, listen, you will be over it, like you will be like overwhelmed with so much knowledge. You got to anchor yourself and indoctrinate yourself in somebody who's principled, that you can say, coming from this perspective, I learned everything else. And who did I tell you, Fu?
Dr. Ben.
I said Dr. Ben and Dr. John Henry Clark.
Yep.
You anchor yourself with them too.
And that for me was going to be another question for you, Professor, about Dr. John Henry Clark, but we can get to that later. It's so much. It's so much. We're all like,
these
questions.
Taking that story that I told you about Santeria and also my brother Fu, and continuing the story about what got me here, because I like to talk like this, because it's like an application that's demonstrating how I got to this point in my life. Some old heads, these same old heads would be the same ones that would bring me up to the Black Panther Party meetings in New York. They would be the ones that would bring me up and introduce me to music, drumming, Larock Bay, dancers and drummers. I know your parents knew Larock Bay in Harlem.
Yes.
I used to attend his classes, and he would have a show like on a Saturday night. He'd have a African dancing drumming show on a Saturday night. And Larock Bay would invite people up. It'd be a show. And like he would charge you like 25 cents to get in. And like he'd say, okay, 25 cents. And at this time he didn't really know me, so I may not have had money. So if I had a dime, he used to say, "Okay, give me a nickel."
Mhm.
He would never take my last money, but he would always charge something. And I would go up to Harlem, LaRock Bay. These old heads were the ones. They were like maybe 5, 6, 7 years older than us. They'd put the young brothers and sisters on the handlebar of their bicycles, and then they take us someplace. Because I was on 63rd Street in New York, Manhattan. That's not far from Harlem, which basically was believed to begin about 110th. So they took us up one day. I was in the 7th grade. It was at the end of the 7th grade. It was at the end of June, and I know because I was about to go to day camp. And they brought us up to Harlem, and they took all the young people, us, and we sat in the front, and we was looking up at the speaker. And the speaker was talking about Africa and about history. Keep in mind now, I've got the experience of Santeria already. So some of the things that he's saying, some words like Africa or any is not new to me. And so, because remember, I was brought up understanding my African American heritage. I listened to Billie Holiday and Paul Robeson. I grew up with music, the Mills Brothers. I grew up in that. And also, when you're dealing with concepts of African American history, my name is Booker T. So everyone said, "Oh, you're going to be a good teacher one day." And so I was always identified, but African American. Now, my neighbor Santeria introduced me to Africa. So by the time I get to Dr. Clark, I have a pretty good understanding at 12 and a half what's going on here. And so at the end of the presentation, they bring us up to meet Dr. Clark. And when they get to me, they say, "And this is Booker T. Coleman Jr." He said, "Oh, Booker T, you're going to be a great teacher one day."
Wow.
Now, that wasn't on my mind at that time. But I said, "Oh, okay." But that's when I first met Professor Clark. I was 12 and a half in Harlem. And he and I continued our relationship through the years. I see him in Harlem, different things, but I didn't really know him like I would get to know. And I told you I want to be a priest. Okay. So I was studying. I was in a high school, sophomore. Now I'm going to take you up to another incident that occurred. I was a young seminarian studying to be a Roman Catholic priest, in high school seminary, not the real seminary after college.
Really?
And I want to be a priest.
Wow.
And I was down in the church and I was doing some research. And I was reading a book about how this sect of priests protected a very sacred statue from the Nazis in World War II. And it read Our Lady of Czestochowa, but in parentheses, it said Black Madonna and Child.
Oh yeah.
I never heard this before.
And how old were you when you found out about this?
14.
Okay, my mom put me onto that when I was 7.
Okay.
And the impact, I can imagine the impact it had on you, because when I first heard it, I was like, "What?"
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, see, brother, I still don't know what this is. I have no idea.
Wow.
What Black Madonna and Child is. So I called Dr. Clark and I told him what happened. And to know Dr. Clark, when you're talking to him on the phone, see, when you're in person with him, you can see what he's doing. But when you're on the phone, you can't. But there was a silence. I since have learned that was not just silence, that was a smirk on his face.
He goes like this. He goes like this. He got his eyes, he squints a little bit, and he goes like, it's like he gets happy, like, "Oh,
yeah,
really?" And then he just goes with it.
Yep.
He just goes with it, man. It's one of the most amazing things to see.
Yeah. He was a genius in delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me to come up to his house. He talked to me. And so when time was right, I called him, told him I'd like to come up and meet with him. And I met with him. And he began to talk to me. He knew I was Roman Catholic. He knew I wanted to be a priest. And so he gave me a Xerox copy of a short story he wrote. It was called The Boy Who Painted Christ Black. And he said, after you read this, come back and, we can talk. And so I went home. Well, first of all, I started reading it on the bus. And I was just shocked from what he had told me and reading this essay. 14 years old, sophomore in high school, interested in becoming a Catholic priest. I'm shocked. I remember the feeling of almost blood leaving my body because I realized what had happened. At that moment, that was one of the turning points in my life. Because I was in something that I needed to get the hell up out of.
Wow.
Beyond the shadow of it. And I'm talking 14 years of age.
Yeah.
Okay, so I read it many times, called him again, said, I'd like to talk to you about it. I went up, and then he started adding some more stuff. He started telling me more things. He began developing concepts that I guess he respected my intellect at 14 to know that I would take him serious. And I'm going to tell you, fam, I came home, I sat with my mother because she was the Roman Catholic. My father was African Methodist. And I spoke to them and I told them what my plans were. And they said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And so what I did is she took me to the store and I bought a suitcase. My father, who was a tailor from Tuskegee, he ironed all of my cassocks and my surplices and all of my religious clothing. And I went to church and I met with my supervising priest. And as I walked in the room, he looked at me and he said, Booker, I think the church is losing you. And I put the suitcase on the table and I said, Father, the church lost it. I walked out, never went back.
That was it.
That's it. Done. No more. When I realized, and see, that's why my book, Spirituality Before Religions, has that. Oh, there we go. Okay, brother.
Hold up.
Spirituality Before Religions.
We all got it. We all got it.
I have my iPad over here.
But that's the purpose of it, because that's my odyssey. That's my journey in life. And that's why I don't have a problem with having been Roman Catholic, because being Roman Catholic combined with Santeria grounded me in a spiritual sense that I needed as a young black man growing up in the project. But by the grace of God, there go I. I could have become anything. I could have become one of the nodding outers. I could have become anything. I know that. But by the grace of God, there go I. When I look at my friends, even when I go back to the hood now and I hang with my friends, they're on the same block. They talking the same smack they were talking when we were teenagers.
Trapped in time.
That's it.
Trapped in time.
Trapped in time, moving in a bubble. And with due respect to all, we all do the best we can. And this is what I try to talk to our community about. Do the best that you can with what you got. Unconditionally, I love my people. Unconditionally. You be pimp, prostitute, gangbanger, whatever. You could be standing on a corner waiting for a red light to come with a cup to ask me for some money. And I still love you. Unconditionally. Because if you are black in America, 2021, I got nothing but respect and love for you. Because your existence is a miracle. Because you're not supposed to be here. If those who designed this society had their way, you'd be dead, back in Africa, or totally insane.
I got an off-topic question before you keep going. When you were teaching, did you ever give any of your black students anything less than a B?
Yes.
You did.
Yes,
I only asked because Professor
Small
said he wasn't going to give his students any less than a B because it was already too hard for them in America.
No,
Professor, we interviewed Professor Smalls about a month ago.
One time. At that, he's one of my teachers too. He's my older brother. James
Oh
Small
my goodness! Can
comes
I
out of
tell
that.
you?
Oh yeah, that's my man.
Oh man,
No doubt.
it's just as great and it's just as interesting and prolific as this moment that I'm experiencing with you right now.
Okay.
Just to sit and talk to him, it was great. And
Yeah,
and he said that, and I think about it, and I think about all of the degrees that I have, and I feel like I am just now touching on something. And it has nothing to do with the bachelor's of science or the bachelor's of this and that and marketing or whatever. I got that. That's great. But there is something that I am just now touching on. And I'm really experiencing it with Professor Smalls, you, your mentor. I mean, it's interesting. And I feel like I just started touching ground, to be honest. And let me say this. I'm from Georgia. I am from where Fu is. Fu's from New Jersey. I'm from Georgia.
You know, what you're actually coming upon is you.
Yep.
That's what we're all coming upon. You see, I was blessed to come to this knowledge very young. That's why I dedicated myself to the children. Because I knew that if I could get into their head, and I started in New York as a kindergarten teacher.
Really? You taught in the public school system, or were you like Catholic school or what?
No, when I started teaching, I was in the public school system.
Oh, okay.
I started teaching in October of 1979. I retired in 2009, 31 years. Wow. My primary license is in early childhood. I'm a kindergarten teacher. And now you can imagine what those meetings look like. When I would walk in, not only was I the only man in the room, I was the only black
man in the room. I can only imagine.
I'd be sitting in a lotus position reading books to 4- and 5-year-olds.
Wow.
Okay, so that's my experience. But let me answer the question that you asked me. When I taught 8th grade, because I taught middle school too, I taught 8th grade. And there was a student that I really had a lot of respect for him, but he was just as inappropriate as you could get. But there was something I saw in him. And he was just messing up everything. He was in the 8th grade. He belonged to a family that had great pull in the community. And he was smelling his stuff and thought he could get away with anything. I failed him so he would go to summer school because I needed time to talk to him. And I was teaching social studies. I had to fail him.
I get it.
I needed personal time with him because he was trying to show off in the classroom. I needed to shock him and put him in summer school so he could spend some time. I made him eat lunch with me every day.
Really?
Yeah, because you weren't going to pass my class. You didn't eat. I used every trick in the book because, family, I will brave the fires of hell to save our children. And I went through a lot of stuff with that because a lot of his family members were real pissed at me.
They don't play that. And they're like, oh, you're singling my kid out.
Oh, yeah.
And why are you doing that?
Yeah. And because he has the ability to do much better than he's doing. And quite frankly, family, he's embarrassing you. He's using you and he's embarrassing you. And as a black man, I can't let this happen. So I'm going to fail him. Now, the other time I failed a student, see, that was the only time I ever failed a student. So if you ask me, I'm going to tell you the truth. I said, oh, only one. Well, there was only one. But there was another one in college. And that was because he arranged to have a friend of his take his test while he went downtown.
Cheated?
Yeah, he wasn't even in the room.
Well, that's different. You should have failed him.
Okay, but I didn't fail him. I gave him an incomplete.
Okay.
And then I made him come back the next term and do my class. And then I passed him the next term. See, there's a part, as much as it is that unconditional love I have for our people, that I will go to those extra lengths for them to make sure you understand. One of my greatest critics was John Henry Clark. He used to look through my writing and he tear it up.
Okay, so wait, so Professor, like, did he? Okay, so you've come into your professional that as a instructor and teacher and this and that. You were still engaged with him through the years.
With who?
With Professor Clark, with Henry Clark. Yeah,
till the day he died.
Really?
Oh, 1998. The day he died, I was with him.
Did you? Were you ever like I don't know, like how was that relationship between you and him? Knowing that this is your mentor, someone you really looked up to. Now technically you're kind of stepping in those shoes at this point. You're writing, you are a professor, you're educating, you are taking the lead. Yeah. How was that particular relationship?
Well, let me put it to you like this.
You said we can talk.
We're gonna talk.
Okay.
One time I was with Professor Clark. I was in my 20s at this time. And I was just so overwhelmed with his genius and his generosity. He was 51 when I met him. He was born 1915.
Okay.
In Alabama, not far from my father. And that man never made me feel uncomfortable in his presence. He was always somebody that was very cordial. You could talk to him. He would laugh and he would make you laugh. You could go back, and he say, I'm hungry, man. You want to go up someplace to eat? After
with me?
And, one day I said to him, Professor Clark, I could never repay you for what you did for me through my life. And he said, Booker T, you're right. You ain't got that much money.
Boy, he was straight to the point.
But he said, you can repay me by doing for others what I've done for you. And what I'm doing right now with y'all is my ability to thank Dr. Clark for what he did for me. My talking to the community this way and trying to break it down as much as I possibly can is my way of thanking Dr. Clark. I'm turning it around. As you did for me, I will do for others. Absolutely. And that's what he charged me with. He said, you can't pay. What I've done for you is priceless. There is no amount you can put on this. Mm-hmm. But the price you can put on this is to do for others what I've done for you. And that's what pretty much directed me towards teaching. Mm. So when he told me when I was 12 and a half, I was going to become a teacher one day, I didn't know how true that was.
And that's why I'm asking. Like, now you are teaching, and then to still be surrounded by him and his wisdom and his history. Like, I would have been nervous personally. I would have been very safeguarded with whatever.
In terms of what, Mr. J?
In terms of stepping into those shoes, stepping into being that historian, that educator, that person.
Oh, well,
I'd be nervous. Come on.
Well, I've had my nervousness. I have my nervousness. Oh, I do. And since you're speaking on this, let's talk. If I were a student today in the system, they would try to put me in special ed.
Why you say that?
Because I have a great challenge. And I used to always say to people, "Can you guess what that challenge is?" I
was about to say, and that is what challenge is that? You're so great at what you say.
Well, that's interesting. You should say that because I have a very serious speech impediment.
I would have never known.
I stutter and I stammer profusely.
I would have never known that.
Because I learned how to get over it. I never lost it. I still can stutter. I still can stammer.
You, sir, I have watched you in all of the hidden colors. I've watched you so out of darkness, and you say this particular poem that I did not want to bring up and put you on the spot because I hate to do stuff like that because I'm so excited to do this with you. But you speak so eloquently. I would have never known you had any type of speech impediment. You speak very clearly, eloquently, and I'm always like this. I was telling I was telling Main One earlier. I was like, listen, I've already watched these things 2 and 3 times over the weekend, just preparing to speak with you today.
Okay.
So
Well,
I would not have known that.
well, Sister J, let me drop the other shoe. So
Okay.
that the reason why they put me in special ed is not because I studied. The reason why they put me into special ed is because I became what's called a selective mute. I shut down for 4 years of my life, didn't talk.
Oh, wow.
And they wanted to put me in what's called CRMD. See, they didn't have special ed back then. They had the class for the mentally retarded. They wanted to put me in the class of mentally retarded. And my mother said, ain't nothing wrong. You are not putting my son in mentally retarded. There's nothing mentally retarded. In fact, you telling me that he don't talk around you. I wish he would bring that kind of thing home because he don't shut up in the house.
But y'all ain't around. You talking about, but I remember, if I'm not mistaken, the same thing happened to Maya Angelou.
Mm-hmm. And same thing, James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, and these are people that speak so eloquently.
That's right.
So what brought that on, Professor? Why did you shut down?
Well, when I was going into the military, I was going into the Air Force during Vietnam, and I went and they declined because I wanted to go to Air Force Academy because I wanted to become an astronaut. See, this is why I say for me to become a teacher is interesting because I really wanted to be an astronaut because I've always been interested in outer space. I've always been directed. I wanted to become an astronaut. The only way to become an astronaut back then was to go through pilot training. Only pilots could become astronauts. And they said the best way, Dr. Clark told me, the best way to become a pilot quickest is to go to the Air Force Academy. He said, you got the grades, you've got the ability, see what you can do. So I applied for the Air Force Academy. But they declined me because they said I stuttered and I stammered. So I went to a speech clinic for a weekend because I was getting into that Air Force Academy. You weren't going to tell me no. One of the things they said, well, you have to be verified that you'd be all right under war conditions because Vietnam was going on there. And so the end result is this. They said that I think 3 sentences ahead of what I'm actually speaking. So that when I'm talking, I'm confusing 3 steps ahead with where I am at that moment. A lot of people stutter for that reason. They're stuttering because their mind is moving so quickly. What they're saying is 3 sentences behind where they're thinking. I learned how to calm that down. But I still stutter and I stammer profusely. I was watching James Earl Jones one day. He was talking about his stuttering. And he said one of the ways that he did it was to take acting classes. And so I started taking acting classes.
You did?
Yeah, I took acting classes at the Frederick Douglass Creative Writers Workshop. It is the counterpart to the Watts Writers Workshop in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Bud Schulzberg created the Watts Writers Workshop on the West Coast. And he created the Frederick Douglass Writers Workshop on the East Coast. And I took writing classes. I took script writing. I took acting classes. I took poetry. I took a lot of different classes. And what assists me, like right now, I became a character that doesn't stutter.
Okay.
I
get it. No. I completely understand.
It's like when someone who is Nigerian plays Fred Hampton or Martin Luther King, and then you hear them and they got that British accent.
Right.
Well, they get into a mindset in acting. They get a method actor. They become the actor. And the character you become doesn't stutter. And so therefore, when I'm talking, I don't stutter. If that makes sense. But that's how my mind functions.
No, but I want to say this. So with me being on the circuit of music or whatever, I watch a lot of documentaries, and one One of which that I watch is that of Bill Withers. Do you know who that is? I know you know.
Oh, yeah.
I know you know who
Oh,
that
yeah.
is.
Oh, yeah.
He
He on my iPad.
Virginia all day, accent, everything. Stuttered so bad. I never knew that and did not know that until watching the documentary. That's when I found out that this man stutters that bad, but you could not have known that. So I completely understand that once you, it sounds like to me, and it's sort of like the same thing with Steve Harvey, because he said that he had a speech impediment issue too. When you really hone in on a craft that you know that is destined for you, this was destined for you, and you took out time to develop it. No, I could have never figured this out from you, and I would have. I'm still trying to figure out Bill Withers to this day until I watched that documentary. I'm like, what? Bill Withers, the using me guy?
Oh, yeah. Ain't no sunshine. Yeah,
Ain't no sunshine guy.
that's right. That's right.
In the world. But
No.
that documentary that they did on him, and he talks about it, and he is not ashamed of it at all. It's in my own family. I can't say I've suffered with it much. My son has suffered with it a bit. But when I tell you, you can overcome any and everything. This is just this is sort of the stamp on it, because I would have never known this about you.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know, my sister Jay, what makes what you're saying so important? Let me take you back into a class I was going in somewhere in the middle 90s. I used to visit classes. I was director of social studies. We had 35 schools in our district. South Central Bronx.
Wow.
And we had 28 elementary schools and 8 middle and junior high schools. And I was directing the social studies and cultural program for all of the 35 schools. And I used to visit schools, and I used to like to get into the classroom. I was an administrator, but I enjoyed being in the classroom. That's all I've ever really enjoyed doing. Next to doing staff development and community development. But there was a particular special ed class I used to visit every Wednesday. And there was a young sister in the class. I'm not going to mention her name, but she was in the class and she never spoke. And there was one time something happened and she reacted and she stuttered and everybody laughed at her. I'm going to connect this story to my story.
Okay.
And I sensed what was going on. And I began to talk. And then I began to talk about stuttering. And I began to talk about my challenges in stuttering. And I began to tell them that I could even stutter to this day. And the children, you know, just didn't believe it. They said, no, Brother Booker T, you speak so, you never stutter. But then I said, and you know, it's a frightening thing to do for me. It's one of the things I don't like to do. Because of the memories that I went through growing up, being laughed at.
Yeah.
But I said, I'm going to jump into it. And so I let my guard down and I started to stutter. And the class hushed. It's a special ed class, mostly of young brothers. Got maybe 3 sisters, maybe about 8 brothers. And I started to stutter. I started blinking. I couldn't finish my sentences.
Yeah.
Everything came back to me.
Yeah.
But I was doing this for this young lady. I wanted her to hear me do this. And I wanted her to know it's all right to express yourself. Because that's one of the things Dr. Clark told me when I was stuttering with him. He said, what you have to say is important. I want to hear it. Take your time and do whatever you have to do. I want to hear it. And that's what I did with this young sister. You're important. What you have to say is important. I will make the time for you to be able to express yourself. From that point on, I understand from the teacher, they left her alone. And Claudia started talking. She started talking in class. Had no problem talking in class after that. as an example, because she said, well, if Brother Booker T is like that, then I know it's all right. When they wanted to put me in special ed when I was a child, my mother said, there's nothing wrong with my son. And she and the nuns would say, look, we have threatened to fail him, and he still won't talk. What will get him to talk? And my mother said, stop letting the children laugh at him. Because that's what he's telling me they're doing. You're allowing the children to laugh at him. He's shutting down because he don't want to be laughed at because he's a child.
Right.
And they used to give me words like M. They know I would stutter on M. So they say, what movie did you see the other day? The Mummy. Okay. Or they say, what's your name? And of all names, Booker? Oh, my goodness.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
When I say my name, that sounds like a pistol going off. Because I could not get the B out. I could not get from the B to the O. Here's my point, though. Here's the main point. Some of the most brilliant human beings I met in my life were in special education classes. This system stifles their creativity. They have set up this golden rubric, this golden way. This is what's good. And however close you are to that we're telling you is good, you're good. The further away from that you go, the less good. And I am saying that we all learn different ways.
Yes.
We all have different learning styles. And some of the most brilliant minds that I have worked with 7 indigo children. Indigo children are geniuses. But they have challenges. I'll tell you a story about one of the indigos. I want to make sure I'm on time here.
Okay, it's okay.
I've worked with 7 indigo. I've worked with 4 female students and 3 male. The last one I had was a male in the Bronx. One of the things about indigo children, one of the things about genius children is one of their greatest characteristics, which causes a problem, is they have a problem with authority. They don't want to hear nothing because they think they're smarter than everybody. And they are. They are. That's the problem. They are smart. They're smarter than most of the adults in the school.
Wow.
They're geniuses. This young brother, I used to, I would.
Is that type of child that you're speaking of? Because I've never heard of that before.
Indigo child is a genius.
Indigo, yeah.
You saw Rain Man?
Yes.
With Dustin Hoffman?
Yes.
Well, the character that Dustin Hoffman played, that's Indigo.
Okay. Okay.
That's a sheer genius. This student that I had used to always get kicked out of class because he always had something to say to the teacher. And I was about the only teacher that he could get along with. And that's because the one thing I did with indigo children is I would give them ideas, and then when they did it, I would never tell them, I told you that. I would give them credit for the idea. Because the moment I told them you did what I said, that's authority, then they would buck me.
Yeah. Okay.
So I always gave them credit for everything that they did. That was one of the openings to working with genius children. I gave this, and I would hear a knock at the door. I'd be teaching a class. I'd look at the little window, and there's his face right there in the window. We're dealing with from 5th grade to 8th grade.
Yeah.
So basically, we're dealing with age range from 10 to about 12, 13. Absolute genius. Half Puerto Rican, half Dominican. Brother. And he knocked at the door. And I'm not going to repeat what he said, but I'm going to give you the words to give you a sense of how this worked out.
Okay.
And he'd say, by this time, my name was Brother Kaba. And he said, Brother Kaba, I hate that B.
Wait, how old was he again?
Well, this could have been he could have been, this was 5th grade. Could have been 7, 8, 9 years of age.
Okay. All right.
Okay. But keep in mind, this brother's operating on a super genius level.
Yes.
Just to give you an example of the genius, then I'm going to come back to my story. There was an old beat up piano in the hallway. One day, we were in class and we heard the piano being played. The piano was out of tune. It had always been out of tune. We were always talking about throwing it away because it got in the way when we were walking down the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
We go outside. This same student I'm talking about, here he is playing the piano.
The one that said, "What that be talking about?"
Exactly. And I said, I said to him, I said, "Yo, man, I didn't know you played piano." He said, "Well, I don't."
What?
I said, "But wait a minute, you playing it now?" He said, "No, but I'm just going by what I feel."
Wow.
And this brother was playing the piano, but not just that. He tuned the piano.
I was about to say, because if it hadn't been tuned for years,
That's
who
right.
tuned it? He must have done it so
He-
that it's a certain sound in his ear.
That's right. And I've seen people tune pianos before, and I know that you got to have your stuff together.
Yeah.
Your ear has to be such that you can pick up what's in tune and what's out of tune, particularly
What's
with a
flat
piano.
and what's just right. Yeah. Wow.
Now, he never had piano lessons. He was just kicked out of class. He was in the hallway. He tuned the piano and started playing it.
Wow.
Okay, that's the kind of genius that we're talking about here. Okay, so he kicked out of class. He comes to my class, and he used to walk with me in the hallway because all my books and everything I had on a rolling shelf, and I used to roll my books in the hallway. He said, "I'll do that for you, Brother Kaba." So he would. He also taught me computer. He taught me computer, and over the years, when he graduated from 8th grade, it was towards the end when we were about to graduate. 8th grade, don't come back. And I said to him, "Man," I said, "you helped me out a lot." And he looked at me in the same tone, said, "Man, you helped me out a lot."
Me out a lot.
We're talking about a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, this type of relationship. See, this is what I bring to the community. This is why this is so effective, this type of interview, because these are real life issues. I can pontificate about a lot of different things about education and about all, but these are the little examples that tell you about our children and what we got to do for them. And what I dedicated my life to doing.
Wow.
Okay? So I say to him, "Look at all these things." And by this time I had all these little pieces that he had taught me how to do things on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say, "Well, I have to make a folder to put all this there." And I put all the things in. I dragged them over into the folder. It didn't have a name. And he said, "What you going to name it?" I said, "You know something? I'm going to name it after you." And he looked at me. And I typed his name. I still have that folder in my computer today.
Get out. Wait, you still got the same computer? How long has this been?
No, not the same computer. I put it on a flash drive.
Okay.
Technology.
Well, I got to ask. I'm also a programmer, Professor.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good because at least flash drive, miracle of the 21st century.
Right.
Let me tell you something about this young brother. This young brother was accepted in some of the most elite academies around the country, high schools. He took the specialized test for all the specialized schools, Bronx Science and things like that. Peter Stuyvesant. He got accepted in them all. As long as he was in the school, he never got an answer wrong on any test. On the state test, he never got an answer wrong. But he had to go to a zoned high school. He had to go to his zoned high school because the moment he stepped outside of his door, he got lost. It's called spatiality.
And that's like is that a thing as far as?
Yes. Once you get outside, you don't know directions.
Yeah.
You can get lost in a toss of a hat. It's almost like what happens sometimes. It's not the same thing, but it's like when you have Alzheimer's and you're afraid that somebody will go out and get lost.
Yeah.
That's what you have, but he's a child. And he could not find, so he had to turn down all those high schools to go to his zoned high school because his mother had to take him to school. That's the type of level of genius you're talking about that has other types of challenges. I gave him
and it's crazy because sometimes we think on such a minute level, a very small level, people who don't think, oh, this brain is not there. Actually, it is. But you don't. But you're not there. You're not there. So this person is so genius. You need to bring your level of thinking to where he is, and then once you do, you'll see that it's technically on a different level that you probably can't get to, especially when you get into the very things like mathematics.
You know, I gave this brother an assignment. I said, okay, listen, man, I'm gonna give you homework because he was out of class, so he had nothing to do. So I gave him homework. I said, I want you to go home, just the first class that I gave him. I said, I want you to go home and I want you to write down everything that you can think about with the number 1. The brother came back day with 7 pages, back and front, filled with things that deal with the number 1.
Wow. Wow.
Then we went to the number 2. Pages.
Wow.
And then because he was part Puerto Rican and part Dominicano, I gave him an assignment. I said, look, you know your flag. I want you to create a flag for who you are. I want you to combine all the flags. And what he did interesting was that he took the symbols of Puerto Rico, took the symbols of the Dominican Republic, but changed the colors of red, white, and blue to red, black, and green.
Wow.
And then he gave it to me. He said, I knew you'd like this.
And challenging even your own thoughts.
That's it. But that's what but you know something? I interacted with him on the level, like you're saying, Sister J, like he was a genius. Yeah. And he appreciated my respect for him because so few adults respect him.
That's why that's interesting you said that, because that's why, you know, I hear a lot of people say don't talk to babies like babies, like that goo goo gaga and all that kind of stuff. You shouldn't. Yeah. It's detrimental.
No, absolutely. I used to speak to my children just as if I was talking like I'm talking to you now. The subject might not be on the same level, but it basically was just a conversation.
Yeah.
Just a conversation.
Professor.
And that's how I will.
But before we let you go, I mean, we'll keep you on here for about 5 hours talking because it's great conversation, man. I'm telling you. But I wanted you to touch on just the last few minutes on your book, especially the chapter that this is my second time reading through this. So the pyramid text, that chapter of the pyramid text. Man, I get stuck on that because I have to keep going back because you know, it's just a lot of interesting things in there. Can you touch on that a little bit? What inspired? Well, I know what inspired the writing of it, but how'd you come about? You know, the getting it out on into this book.
As I've explained, and it's a journey. Spirituality before religions was a journey that I've been on all my life, searching for the creator. That has been because, you know, like I used to get in trouble growing up all the time because I used to say, like, God is great. And the nuns would say, yes, God is great. I say, God is really great. They say, God is really great. I say, well, if God is great, then the mother of God must be greater. I still have squares on my knees. They used to make me kneel on the grates for a lot of the questions I had because they used to say it's a mystery.
Wow.
And I used to always say, well, if it's a mystery, then we won't know it. And if we don't know it, why do we have to go through it? Because in my mind, I was trying to figure out, well, mystery. What are you talking about, mystery? Ain't nothing a mystery. I'm looking at it right now. And so it was a journey. And what I wanted to do in the book was, I didn't mention one religion in the book did not insult people. I don't have a religion for anybody to take. So I'm not writing the book for you to leave your religion because I don't have anything to give you. So it would be wrong for me to take what anchors you and then not have anything to replace it. I just wanted to make us think. And I have a lot of respect for Christianity. Dr. Amos Wilson tells us that a good organization solves its people's problems and meets its people's needs. When we were on the plantation, Christianity helped us. It's what supported us after all that we were going through, the pain, the agony, generationally, that we were going through. This story of Jesus the Christ was a crutch to help us live to the next day. A lot of us would commit suicide if we did not have something. So I respect Christianity, and I respect what it did for us. But I also understand something else. I also understand that a spiritual system that no longer meets your needs and solves your problems is like carrying the boat on your back after you cross the river. The boat was very important to get you across. But if you keep carrying it once you're on land, it becomes a burden. I don't say destroy the boat, keep it docked, because you don't know if you got to go back. But don't carry the boat on your back. Don't allow what helped you to become a burden for you. And so I wanted to examine African writings, the scripts, the Memphite text, the Shabaka stone, pyramid text, the coffin text, the Book of the Coming Forth Today by Night, the Aten text. I wanted to study them to be able to show whatever religion you belong to, I can show you where your scripture are. I can show you where Genesis is. The newest book I have that's on Kindle now, it's going to become paperback in a few days, but right now it's on Kindle. This book grew out of spirituality before religions. Shabaka's Stone. This is my third book. It's on Kindle now. And what I'm attempting to do is I can show you the 5 books of Moses in the Shabaka Stone. I can show you Jesus Christ in Shabaka Stone. I can show you where all those stories came from Africa. I ain't got a problem with Christianity or agnosticism or Islam or Hebrewism, or if you want to call it Judaism or Zoroastrian or Rosicrucian, from A to Z. I don't have a problem with those religions. I have a problem with the interpretations of those religions. So if you're a Christian, Africanize your Christianity. You're a Muslim, Africanize your Islam. Whatever you are, Africanize it. And move away from the warped Indo-European interpretations of the world, because they're Ice Age and they'll only freeze your pineal gland. And so spirituality before religions was meant to interpret. For instance, in the pyramid text, where I show you in those utterances where the Eucharistic feast of the Christian church came from. The idea of turning the wafer and the wine and water into the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And then why do they use water? Because I was an altar boy, so I know you use water and wine. Why do you use water and wine? Because wine is something of the earth. It's the physical. But what is water? Water is the essence from when you came from. That's the spirit. And so when you're mixing the water and the wine together in the Eucharistic feast, what you're doing is that you are blending the heavens and the earth together in order to rise up off the altar. Because that altar that you have in the church is a sarcophagus. That's what it represents. It's a sarcophagus. It's the coffin for Asar, but the cradle for Heru. And the magic that the priest performs is to turn the coffin into a cradle and to allow the resurrection of Asar to take place in order to redeem and open up the gates of heaven. But what's the gates of heaven? Your mind.
Yes.
Open up your mind.
Open up your mind. Absolutely.
Free your African mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as Cecile and our good brother Bookman in IT said in Alligator Pond the night before the revolution of IT. He said, cast aside your white God. Embrace your African spirituality. You are free. He didn't say you would be free. You could be free. You should be free. You might be free. He said you are free.
Right.
So at a very young age, I freed my African mind that allows me to come before the community and talk like this with respect. I've spoken in churches. I spoke in church one time, and like the audience was a little bit tired. I don't know why they were tired. So I said I wanted to get them a little activated. So I opened up my presentation by saying, I don't believe in God. Oh my goodness. That's exactly what happened.
I can imagine.
And I said, not only that, I ain't got no faith in God.
Oh, Professor.
And I said, but before any of y'all get up to get ready to go, let me tell you, I know God. See, I can lose faith and stop believing. But once you know, you know.
Yeah.
I said, I know God. And that became a very important statement. A woman, not at this particular time, another time, a woman said to me, I just want to know one thing. Is Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior?
Savior God, yeah.
And I said, yes, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. So she was happy. She sat down. Later on, a brother got up and said, man, I'm really very disappointed. I said, what's up, bro?
Why you say that?
You know, he said that because he said, you know, all this time you've been talking to us about spirituality and religion. And now you're telling us that, you know, Jesus is your Lord and Savior. He said, that don't match. And I said, well, you know what don't match is that neither the sister that asked me that question or you asked me a very important question, which could have told you something about my answers. And they said, well, what was it? I said, none of y'all asked me, who is Jesus to me? I am Jesus. I am my Lord and my own Savior.
Wow.
So you asked me if Jesus is my Lord and Savior? Yes. But what is my interpretation of Jesus? I am Jesus, having a human experience.
Right.
But Professor, did you know how that is seen now in Christian churches of our time? Baptist churches and all that. Like and it's funny because after watching what I watch and reading up on it, and I haven't finished your book just yet because I got a feeling that I'm studying this. I'm not just reading it. But there's a part of your studies that say, you know, you're going against the grain. And how is that received with Christians and other religions up to date, even Catholic, even that of, you know, of that, like, how is that received? Like you're not getting like no pushback? Because I'm telling you now, where I'm from, I was raised Baptist, sung it, believed it, acted it out, all that.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, I'm like, you know, now I am studying it. I'm studying it.
Yeah.
So how was it for you when you actually started this journey?
Well, because I became aware so young. You see, it was my celebration of Santeria, and then my introduction to Professor John Henrik Clarke.
Mm-hmm.
At a very young age, I became a spiritual warrior, young. And so I was not impacted by other people's feelings towards me. I'm just telling you what I see, what I feel. I always respected other people's feelings. If
And
that's
their beliefs, I guess. Their beliefs.
That's your thing, and you have a right to believe it, and I would fight for your right to believe it. But please don't try to put that fairy tale on me.
Mm-hmm. Come on, Jermaine. Come on, Jermaine, because I know you mad.
Because I can't handle that. I can't handle that you are going to tell me, after I know the place that Jesus was born was the land of the Natufians who were black, that he's going to come up a blonde and blue eye, and then Herod is looking for him. And Herod is having a problem finding him. Now, let me tell you something. If you in a black neighborhood and there's a blonde hair, blue-eyed boy running around, you're not going to have a problem identifying who he is.
Mm-hmm.
So why were you having a problem finding him? The reason why you were having a problem finding him is because, quite frankly, the boy didn't exist.
Tough.
And, you know, it's not easy. And I know that people, and again, going back to the story about, you know, this has been a crutch for our people. They've held on to this story. This is their life. This is what gets them up in the morning. This is
what got them through. What got them through, whatever they were going through.
Exactly. And I don't have the right to come before our people, even if I believe it to be the truth, with evidence. If that is what holds up your, if that's what holds up your house, if your house is on stilts, even if they're weak stilts, it still holds your house up. I'm not going to come and knock those stilts down, knock your house down, and then not have something to give you. What I'd like to do is give you a thought process to see yourself, to be able to put stronger stilts underneath that so that the weak ones will fall away. And the strong stilts I want to put up underneath that is to instill in your mind that you are the creator having a human experience and that you don't need nobody to speak on your behalf to God. Because this morning I watched God brush his teeth. I helped God wash his face.
And get through a whole day.
And that is it. And when you feel that, when you feel that, when I listen to people, you know, I did a thing. There's a brother named Mighty Sparrow from Trinidad. And he used to do performances where he would tell people, give me a subject to talk about. And all of a sudden he'd create a song around whatever they said. They would just call out subjects and he'd create a subject. Well, what I did was that I went to a church one time and I had them play gospel music. And I said, I can take you to Africa in every song you sing. So what's it? What? Wade in the water. I took you to the waters of Nun. Okay, Be With Me, Jesus, because I grew up with the Soul Stirrers and Sam Cooke. Be With Me, Jesus.
Mighty Clouds of Joy too.
Oh, I grew up with them all. Okay, I can take every gospel song and I can Africanize it. I can show you the African concept in that story. Be With Me, Jesus, touching the hem of his garment.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I could do it all, and I could show you what Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers and Amazing Grace. Now, here's the thing about Amazing Grace. Folk got to understand about Amazing Grace. Okay, Amazing Grace was written by a white captain of an enslaver that one day he was sitting up there looking at what he was doing, and he said, "Amazing Grace." This man had to leave what he was doing. Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound, you know?
That saved a wretch just like me.
That saved a wretch. That should be the last song black folks sing. Every white person. That should be America's national anthem, to tell you the truth.
That should be America's national anthem.
That should be America's national anthem. Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like them.
Why you say that?
Because they're wretches. They don't go wretch, my sister Jay. The way they've treated human beings, all over the world, the way they treated the earth. They poisoned the earth, they poisoned the water, they poisoned the air, and then got the nerve to clean it and then sell it to you. So you drinking bottled water, air conditioning, and fertilizer. They done stole everything. The only thing Europeans ever invented was the Xerox machine in the patent office. Because they stole everybody's idea and put their name on it.
The copy machine and what else?
And the patent office.
But do you hear the irony in that? They stole a copy machine.
Yes, they did.
I mean, they invented, the copy machine. I think that's funny.
Yeah.
That's it.
Wow.
I'm gonna say Uncle Kaba. I want to ask you two questions. I know we about to let you go. First question is, when are you coming back on the show? Because this is part one of many. You welcome to come back anytime you want.
Oh, hey, this is the beginning of the future.
Your book is a study, Professor.
We will continue talking and we will develop. This is the beginning of the process.
And can you please tell people about the fact that you do have a curriculum study?
Oh, yes. In fact,
I'm in it right now.
Okay. If you go, there's numbers of ways you can contact me. If you go to my website, KabaKamene.com, KabaKamene.com, you can download my free e-course, 6-day e-course and study guide. My study guide is 44 pages.
Yep.
Dr. Clark once told me, you may not get to your destination, but if you lay out the proper roadmap, those that come behind will. That's my roadmap. That's where I'm headed. I don't plan on going any place. I plan on Methuselahizing this. I want to live a long life. Dr. King was right. Longevity has its place.
It has its place. Yes, Lord.
But I want to make sure that and it has to be free. Going back to what Dr. Clark said about I could not afford to pay him. Well, there are certain things in life that are priceless. And what I think the most important thing that is priceless is your most important piece of work.
Mm-hmm.
And that study guide is the most important thing that I've done. And it's free.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to my website, KabaKamene.com. I just did a program coming out of Atlanta last night. And I call it Dr. Carver's Children, where they have farmland in Atlanta. And they asked me to come on, and I did a curriculum development around teaching melanin to farmers, to children who are it's called Kinder Gardens. And it's an African-American run and own, and they have other areas around the world where they have plots of land and farm where they teach children agriculture. And so I went on last night and I demonstrated how you can teach melanin to children while they are learning agricultural skills. We approached it from astronomy, botany, biology. And I showed them how you can teach melanin.
Wow.
And so my area is curriculum development and staff development. I travel places around the country working with communities, homeschoolers, people who want to teach their children culture. And so that's really what my main thing is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to tell you how the universe works. My second question was going to be, with everything that's going on and all these kids that are supposed to be homeschooled, do you think this is the perfect opportunity for people to be for us to be teaching our children?
It has always been a perfect opportunity, brother. The pandemic just shook us up to make us realize it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is nature coming through.
Yeah.
The virus is nature. Understand that. And
things that should happen will happen.
Always. And I would never say I'm at war with this virus because my arm is too short to box with nature.
Right.
Don't get up here thinking you're going to defeat. Mama told you, go in your room and come out when I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me about no vaccination. The vaccination ain't going to get you out. It's Mother Nature going to get you out. And we have to understand what it is that what we're dealing with. This virus is nature. In everything that exists in the cosmos, there is something known as the free radical.
Yeah.
And the free radical, the sun, for instance, the job of the sun all day is to fuse hydrogen atoms. And out of fusing hydrogen atoms, you create one helium atom. 2 hydrogen equal 1 helium. But in the process of that fusion, something separates. Something said, no, I ain't going with that. I'm not going with that nature. I'm not following nature. In the Bible, it's called the fallen angel. I ain't going with that. That's what we call in science a free radical. That part of that hydrogen fusion that did not decide to go along became a free radical. That free radical is what comes down to earth, and that's what creates deserts That's what creates skin cancer.
Mm-hmm.
That's what creates the destruction of crops.
Mm-hmm.
UVC and UVB are the harmful rays. See, they tell you about ultraviolet, but they don't tell you there are 3 types of ultraviolet, A, B, and C. A is healthy. A is what comes down and gives us life and sustenance. B and C is that free radical that can't be controlled, that's going to do its thing. You're never going to get rid of that.
Yeah.
The day you get rid of the free radical is the day you get rid of nature. What you got to do is put it in its place, understand it. Amongst us as biological beings, that free radical is a virus. It is that part of our entity that says, I ain't going along with things. So I'm going to invade your organism. And I'm going to look for your weakest spot. And I'm going to get there. So if your lung is your worst spot, I'm going to get your lungs.
Mm-hmm.
If you have problems in the brain, I'm going to get your brain. If you have problems in your heart, I'm going to get your heart. If you got a problem in your leg, I'm going to get your leg. Wherever you are the weakest, that's where the virus goes. And if your body's that strong that you can fight me off, the virus, I'm just going to hang out in your body and I'm going to wait until someone else come along that's weak and I'm going to jump from you to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the communicableness of the virus. Africans had viruses forever. Vaccinations are not new.
Right. And so,
vaccinations.
And so can we go ahead and just touch on it just a bit with the 4 different vaccinations and the 4 different, well, I should say 3 different types. Go ahead.
Nah, I was gonna say don't give it that title. Call it what it is. Call it experimental drugs. Yeah, don't say
experimental drugs, whatever.
Yeah.
But okay, so it's so professor. So we can't say certain things because we don't want this shut down. So we'll say we'll say experimental drugs. But your take on the whole, everyone getting the experimental drug by the droves. What's your take on it? Last night we had an entire conversation about do it or not do it or make your own whatever, make your own decisions. What is your take on it?
Science is the study of nature.
Yes.
Nature is the essence of the creator. Trust science. Don't trust people.
Okay.
I'm neither yay or nay. I support Brother LeBron James. You have to follow your feelings.
Right.
Your feeling. See, one of the things that we have to do as an African people is, first of all, realize I'm not leading Black people anywhere.
Right.
Black people can lead themselves. We've been through enough to know exactly what we're experiencing.
We're still here. We're still resilient.
And we're still here.
Nowhere.
I understand the Tuskegee experiment.
Yes.
And I understand medical apartheid by Sister Dr. Washington. I understand what they've done to us. But science still prevails. We have to take care of our bodies. We have to build up our immune. If you want to know my answer is I can neither say yay or nay to what you do. I say follow your feelings. But here's something I can tell you. I've been going to Dr. Sebi since 1988. Okay. I have studied with and I have also supported the work of our sister Queen Afua. Laila Africa was a friend of mine. Paul Goss in Los Angeles, brilliant naturopath. We have to start taking care of ourselves and build our immune systems and begin to eat the proper foods when we're supposed to eat them. Because not only do we eat the wrong things, we eat the wrong things at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Everything is not supposed to be eaten in the morning. The worst thing you could do is have a heavy breakfast. Because what is the word itself? When you went bed, you went to fast. When you wake up, you have what breaks your fast.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing to eat is a big meal, because then you spend the rest of the morning trying to get the energy to be able to build up for the energy that it takes to digest your food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make much sense to me.
Me either. And it's just one of those things where we have to have a conversation about it for our own people and for our own, survival. And we have survived a lot of things, like what you're saying. We have. And I'm with you. Like, I fast, and I'll sometimes go, 24 hours, 60 something hours. I fast, I get it out of my body. I am, just being very careful with what I'm putting in my body. And I feel like for the most part that helps my immune system. Now, I ain't saying everybody can do that. Everything that we do ain't for everybody. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is at the end of the day, I know what I'm putting in my body.
Oh yeah.
And I know, and I'm knocking wood, I don't think I've been affected by it, by COVID-19. And I am not in a super hurry to get the experimental that. I'm not. But at the end of the day, I just don't know what side of the fence that I'm on.
Be on your side.
I won't say never. I won't. I can't.
And nobody should, and nobody has to. And stop trying to get LeBron to say it, because you may be surprised at what he says. Mm-hmm. Let people be them. We're all up in people business. Family, I belong to a very special club.
What is so funny for?
I know what you're gonna say. He told me this already. I can't wait.
Oh, that's right. I told you this the other day.
What happened? What would you say?
Fu and I had a conversation the other day. We had a chance to chop it up for a while, and I was just telling him some things. But the idea is, like, I belong to a very special club. It got a long title to it, and I tell people, give me a chance to say the whole title. But in looking at the world we're living in today, I belong to the club that is that title. I mind my own damn business. Because the day I stopped minding my own damn business was the day I started realizing how much damn business I had to mind.
Wow.
We all up in everybody else's business. And I think because we're trying to escape examining our own. Because we're afraid of what we'll see. So we get into everybody else. Because I wish there was a couple more hours to the day for the work that I'm doing. I wish there were a few more days at the end of the week. I wish that there was just because there's so much I want to do. I cannot fathom in my head how I could spend time if it doesn't pertain to me, so to speak. If I'm just in someone else's business, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I don't have time for that. And my thing is that we're all in each other's business trying to tell people what they should say, but you yourself don't know. Or you're just trying to play a hustle where you might be getting something out of it for doing it. But I'm at the point now where I realize I respect people. You do you. When all is said and done, you will be judged by your work. That's how people will remember you. People want to get all up in people's case, get all up in their business, saying that he's with this or she's with that. Okay. No. What are you?
Mm-hmm.
And I just attempt to mind my own damn. Not to say I don't like a little tea every so often.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that.
But like you ain't gonna hear me say that. I ain't gonna
say that. Like, you know what? I like great entertainment. I'm an entertainer, but at the end of the day, I am gonna dictate my life by me and not by the celebrities in which I'm looking, that I see on social media. That's not very important to me. I know the way my clock ticks. And I've got to, go there with me. And so, whatever. And if it does serve me a purpose to get VE'd or the drug, I just might. That's my stance.
And we all have a right to say what we want. That's why I'm not saying yay or nay, because if it comes to the point that I begin to trust science, I'm going to go with it.
Right.
If it's at a point where I don't trust, I'm not going to go with it. Because I don't trust people. I trust science. Science doesn't lie.
Mm-hmm.
And science has evidence. There were vaccinations in Africa for a very long time. And we have to understand that it's here. It could be in a tea. You might drink a tea. You might wrap a leaf around your forehead. Okay. There are different ways that you can do this. But the main point is that they've just found something out very interesting. They have found out that in the poorest parts of Africa and India, people are not getting it. I just saw a report today. But in the beginning of the pandemic, I heard people saying that I can't get it because I got melanin. That's not true. Because if you have an opening in your body, that virus can get in your eyes, in your nose, in your mouth, in your ears. When you go to the bathroom, you are opening up an area that has an opening.
So how is it they weren't getting it?
Well, you don't get it because melanin, you can get it, but melanin will fight it. Melanin will build up your immune system so you can fight it. It's the type of life system that they have, a very simple life system of eating the proper foods, the proper amount of rest at nighttime, the thought process that you live. This allowed that body to be have a strong immune system. You want to build your immune system. Viruses are going to be here for the rest of the existence of our planet. You're not going to escape them. What you do is you build your immune system up in order for them to fight it off. You eat the right foods. You must exercise every day because all of your organs and glands are right down your spinal cord, your spinal column. Your spinal column is made strong by your abdomen. You must do abdominal exercises to keep your stomach strong, to keep your backbone strong, to keep your organs and glands secreting the hormones, the glands, and the organs do work. They can work, and the glands can secrete the liquids. You have to think the proper thoughts. The three major laws was control of your thoughts, control of your words, and control of your deeds. All of them were words. Your thoughts are silent words. What you say are verbal words, and how you act is your action words. Control those. Mind your business. No, I mean mind
Your business. That's right.
And do what you were born to do. And if you see another person inappropriate, if you can help them, help them. If you can't, you move on.
Yeah.
I think
you just do what you got to do.
What you just said is the perfect way to end the show. For everybody out there, I want y'all to understand this is a true honor to have this man on this show, and the fact he said he's willing to come back is amazing. Make sure everybody goes to the website down at the bottom. Go get that curriculum. Like he said, now is the perfect time to do homeschooling. He's giving you the blueprint right there. Me and May ain't gonna mess with Jason. She got hers on the iPad.
I got her on my iPad.
Look, and you got to get the new one.
This is a lesson.
Okay. and please, can I tell you something about success in what it is that we're doing?
What?
It's not just for me. This is for all the scholars that have books out. Part of the success of a book is that you get it. But the other part of the algorithm that creates who you are is your review of the book. Your review is very important to the life of the book.
Yeah.
So I encourage fam, however you may feel about my books or any other scholar's books, make a review on Amazon.
Okay.
It makes a difference. The algorithms change according to the book. Shabaka Stone is #1 on Amazon in ancient Egyptian history,
Wow.
ancient history. But here's the key. For some reason, and I got to find out how this happened, it's #1 in religious history.
Oh, really?
That shocked me.
Is it in that genre of religion?
I didn't put it in that genre,
Oh.
but it went there. Somebody did.
Mm-hmm.
And that tipped it into maybe somebody from a religious community purchased it, read it, and then told other people about it. And then so many people commented on it from a religious perspective. Shabaka Stone became #1 in the religious section history.
Okay.
All of this makes a difference in everything that we're doing. It's like your show, Unplugged. If people started commenting on it, it draws attention. The algorithms will go there. Pretty soon you'll see something that says, this got 90% more attention than all the others.
Mm-hmm.
That's an algorithm, which is going to follow you. And it's going to promote your show because they want to promote you because they promote you, you promote them. So not like they're doing you a favor.
Right.
Yeah. But
Business.
it's putting you in the right category, I guess, with what's popular at the time. Yeah.
Business. We talking business here, family.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like they say, this ain't personal. This is business.
Business. I want to say this to close out the show, and I know that my co-hosts feel the same. This has been one of the most enlightening moments of my entire life, I think. And I'll say that because I got to sit and talk, and it's candid, and it's real, and it's, for me, it's everything that I sort of didn't know was going to happen, because I see you on TV, and I want people to know, like, they're going to see you on all of the hidden colors, out of the darkness. What's the other one that you mentioned, Jermaine, that you've seen? I haven't seen it just yet, but you are mainstream, and you are here educating. You are doing, I think, what you were placed here to do. And I have never been so enlightened and so grateful, and just don't know how to express to you how much I appreciate what you do, who you are, and what you stand for. And I am studying this. I just got into this. Like, I'm serious. Like, I went to school and everything. But I am just now starting something, a journey that's thanks to my friends, Jermaine and Faquan, that I'm really honing in on, and to be able to talk to people, and it becomes like a overwhelming thing. And thank you.
Hotel.
Thank you.
Hotel.
That's it.
Uncle Kaba, like I said, we definitely appreciate it. We're going to be in contact. I'm gonna text you a few things that you can check out also, because I understand that sometimes the student can actually show the teacher something they may have not known about. We're going to be in contact. You let us know on Monday when you're free. You are more than welcome anytime. It does not matter. For everybody out there, make sure you go check out his website. Make sure you go check out his books. Yes. Listen to him on those documentaries. Hidden Colors 1 through 5. Out of the Darkness. And May, what's the other one?
Yeah.
The other one is Heavy as the Crown.
Heavy as the Crown.
Yeah, Heavy as the Crown. Heavy as the Crown Heavy as the Crown is part 2 of Outer Darkness. Okay. But also keep in mind,
Outer Darkness is prime right now, y'all. If y'all got
and also it's on Revolt TV. P. Diddy.
Okay.
And now Heavy as the Crown is is from the same person, Amadeuz Christ. That's coming out soon. But also keep in mind, April 30th, Tariq is going to drop the bomb in buck breaking.
Yeah.
Can you tell us that now? Can you tell us that now without it being? Yeah.
Oh, nah. Everybody know about us everywhere. Everybody know about buck breaking coming. Yeah.
April 30th. Just do buckbreaking.com and it'll come. And let me tell you something. I was sitting. He interviewed me for this when he had his conference in Atlanta, September 19th. Yeah. He interviewed me on September 18th. I always get the questions. I'm going to tell you this. you're gonna want to see this one.
Okay. That's all you have to say.
You're gonna want to see this, ma'am.
Did you see all of our body language changed for a second? Waiting for you to say that. We want to see it.
Yeah, well, I had to get you all ready. I was going to tell you all to fasten your seatbelts before I answered. But get ready, fam, because we're going down into a subject that needs to be discussed. It's extremely sensitive. It is hurtful. It is painful. And I'm encouraging that the psychiatrists and the psychologists and the sociologists be outside the movie house or wherever the people are going when you see this, because this movie is going to bring your ancestors back to life.
And I hope after a few months of your busyness, because it's coming, that you'll come back and talk to us.
Oh yeah. No, we need counseling. After this movie, we are going to need counseling. If we never thought before, we're going to need it. Trust me. So,
okay.
I needed a little bit of counseling after I left. So
really,
because when you go through this, when you research that subject of buck breaking, you can't help but see it every day in things that happen. When I saw George Floyd, I saw buck breaking. But the only difference is that a young sister had the courage to videotape that. Because if she hadn't videotaped that, we would never have known that.
No, yeah.
Times are different.
Yeah.
And that's what I was alluding to with what's his name, mom? Emmett Till's mom. That takes courage.
Oh,
that's not easy. That's not easy because you relive that moment over and over and over.
Oh, yeah. And you relive the moment that person must have gone through to go through that. But you see, here's I know I'm going to end it here because I know we're going.
Okay. No, it's okay.
It's going to your perspective. Family, when I watch what happened to George Floyd, the reason why I wrote Spirituality Before Religions was for the last chapter. Everything that I say in the book is leading for you to understand the last chapter, where we go from here.
Right.
And what I'm saying in that is that there is a return of the Black cosmic mother. We are entering into the age of Aquarius. We are leaving the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, which is in fact the age of the Black cosmic mother, the water bearer, bringing the information and knowledge to her children to cleanse their bodies, their souls, their spirits, and the earth. This is the time. This is why you see so many sisters rising. Look at the sisters around the world that are rising in Nigeria, in Tanzania, in America. Stacy Abrams and Sister Latoya. You see the sisters rising. But I say to brothers, don't get it misconstrued, because in each of us, we have the female in us by nature of mother.
Right.
I celebrate Women's History Month not only because of my wife, my mother, and my daughters. I celebrate the woman in me, the feminine principle of me. And I'm proud of that. And I celebrate that. There is the return of the Black cosmic mother. We are in the process of this happening as we speak. And this virus, okay, here's my story, then I'm going to stop. When you was home and your grandma was coming,
yes,
and the children were acting up and mother was sitting trying to get things done, trying to sew the blankets for the bed so that when grandma came, and she's sitting there and the kids are acting up. They fighting, throwing things at each other. Mama say, look, y'all got to stop. Granny coming, y'all got to stop. I'm trying to get this done. Stop. Children keep acting up. Keep acting up. She said, come on now, stop. Kids keep acting up. Grandma, all of a sudden, she say, and now here's the thing. When mama say this, everybody know.
This is it.
Okay? Don't make me get up out this chair. Okay, when mama say that, you better stop. But they ain't got no sense, so they keep doing it. And then mama got to get up, and right then, everybody go to their room.
Yes.
This virus, not one shot fired, not one bomb dropped, got everybody in the world in their rooms for a timeout. And Mama said, I told you that my mother is coming. And if she comes here and she sees you acting like that, she's going to say, what type of mother am I? So you know something, kiddies? Go to your room and don't come out until I tell you. That's what this virus was. The Black Cosmic Mother is coming. I don't want to go Twilight Zone.
Okay.
I don't want to go out there like this because I'm talking science, family. This is science. Look at it. Look at what's happening all around us. This is nature. This virus is us. It's the worst in us coming out of us to all of us. And we better fix ourselves. And we better get our heads together. And we got to start loving each other and respecting each other. And here's my last request to the Black community.
Please.
Please stop fighting amongst yourselves.
Exactly.
Yes.
Stop. No matter.
Can I add on to that?
Please.
And get on code.
The code.
Yes. Get
Black
on code.
first. Black first. I ain't got nothing against anybody else. Black first.
I don't think we don't either. No, but definitely.
And if you got a problem with that, then you ain't looking out for my best interest.
Then you need to educate yourself just a little bit more.
In closing, I want to say, so I'm gonna make sure I put in the tag in the title, part 1, and hopefully after Butt Breaking comes out that Friday, we can do a review on that Monday. with you, part 2. So,
I don't know, but
brother, I look forward to the future. We're gonna do a lot of things together as we move forward. This is just the opening.
Absolutely.
I look forward to the future. We're gonna make this happen.
I have a request for you, Uncle Kaba.
Sure, brother.
The fact that you said what you said about therapy and people needing that. Is there any way that you can reach out? I think her name, Professor Joy, the one that talks about the post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Oh, Joy Degree.
Yes, if you can contact her, please. We would love, to me, that would be the perfect segue after Buck Breaking to possibly have you and her on the show, because she's the one that can really break that down also.
Okay.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know you guys are gonna be busy though. I wouldn't say right after it comes out, but definitely.
Well, we'll work something out. It'll work in divine time, no matter how it works out.
Yeah.
You know.
The universe will work it out.
We'll work it out, and
Okay.
and we'll keep talking.
Absolutely.
And anything we can do to support you, know that. Shout it out. I'm
we
here.
Can't thank you enough. We can't thank you enough. We humbly,
Thank you.
Master Teacher, you already know. For everybody out there, make sure y'all make this episode go viral. Make sure you understand who people know who this man is. This is what you call a true educator and someone who cares about his people, our people. We love y'all. We definitely appreciate everything you do. There is no us without you. Y'all have a great night, and we will see y'all this weekend. Deuces, everybody.
Thank you, Professor.
Hotep.
Hotep.
All power to the people.